Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, was directed by George Lucas, and, well, it's a movie, I guess. I am continuing my Star Wars series, reviewing Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I already reviewed The Phantom Menace earlier this week, and now we are on to a movie that, after rewatching it for the first time in a while the other night, is more entertaining than its predecessor, but takes a dip quality-wise, and that's saying a lot, considering that The Phantom Menace is not a very good movie. That's not to say this is one of my least favorite movies of all time, because it still is Star Wars after all. It has some entertainment, but the movie itself, it was such a misfire on so many levels, and I'd never really realized that until watching it the other day for the first time in a while. I knew this movie was never that good, but my mind changed a lot after watching this movie. And even for myself, I know I enjoyed this movie quite often every single time I watched it as a kid, and even growing up, becoming a teenager and eventually an adult like I am now, I enjoyed the movie. But then that all changed the other day when I watched this movie again. I don't know why. Actually, you know what? Let's just begin talking about this movie. I'll start at the beginning. Like Episode 1, Episode 2 barely gives us anything to care about within this time span. It's all politics once again. The plot is pretty much all over the place. And to say the least, when I was watching this movie the other day, I kept saying to myself, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. That's just how I felt. The politics are so uninteresting, very dull. It's exactly like how Episode 1 starts out, save for one scene. There is one scene in this opening 30, 40 minutes or whatever it may be that I do like, but it's ruined by something. The scene I'm talking about is the chase sequence on Coruscant, but what ruins the scene is the green screen and CGI. It looks fake, once again, like in The Phantom Menace, maybe even worse. This is some terrible CGI that's rendered in the movie. None of it holds up in 2019. You can tell by just looking at it that it is CGI. Though the chase sequence is still fun, every time I thought about Attack of the Clones when I was younger, this is the first scene that came to my mind in the film. It's a well put together scene, but the CGI and green screen slightly ruins it. How about we talk about some Hayden Christensen being casted as Anakin Skywalker in this movie, the 19-year-old. Yeah, sure, Hayden Christensen, he's not very good in this movie, but I will defend him because he's not the only one that's bad in this movie. I look at Natalie Portman, Samuel L. Jackson is garbage in this movie. Almost everybody in this movie is bad, and I don't know if it's just the dialogue or them. I think it might be the dialogue, like I said, for The Phantom Menace, but that's up for interpretation. Nobody really knows the truth. While Hayden and the rest of the gang do redeem themselves in Episode 3, there is no saving these performances in Episode 2. Every single time that one of these characters opens their mouths, I laughed hysterically. This dialogue is atrocious. Something that bothered me a lot in The Phantom Menace was the age difference between Padme and Anakin. Anakin was supposed to be 9, while Padme was 14. In Attack of the Clones, he's 19 while she's 24. Even though in real life, Hayden Christensen is a couple of months older than Natalie Portman. So why would you cast Jake Lloyd and have him be a 9-year-old kid, whereas Padme is 14 in The Phantom Menace, and then have somebody like Hayden Christensen come in Episode 2, have him say that he's 19, have her be 24, and say they're 5 years apart, when in reality that's going to anger every single fan on the universe because Hayden Christensen is the same exact age as Natalie Portman. I just don't understand that. They should have had Anakin and Padme be the same exact age in Episode 1. Anyway, we know that Padme and Anakin have their romance in this movie, and I think it's hated on a little bit too much. This is not the worst romance I've ever seen. In some scenes, I'm like, okay, you're in love. That was good. Other scenes, terrible. Everyone has their opinion about Padme and Anakin's romance in Episode 2, and with that, I'm just going to leave it be. I will say, it's not that awful. It's perfectly decent, but nothing better, nothing worse. Anyway, At the same time, while these two are off in Naboo doing whatever the hell they want to do, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi on the planet Kamino, which is actually one of my favorite planets in all of Star Wars. And as much as I like the Kamino sequence and the introduction of Jango Fett, there are some subplots brought up in this scene, including the clone army who was cloned after Jango Fett. There are some plots brought up here that they do not explore, nor do they explain. There's just clones now, with Jango Fett being the lead clone of them all, and you don't explain any of it? The plot of episode 2 is all over the place, and it all begins with what's introduced in the Kamino scene. I love how they just don't tell us anything. It's just there. It's like, all right, just get over with. We want to get to the ending eventually. This then is followed by two of the film's best scenes, one of which is the asteroid-filled chase between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett over the planet of Geonosis, and the seismic charges in this scene. Some of the coolest sound effects I've ever heard in all of Star Wars. The sound design in episode 2 is probably one of the best aspects in the entire film. And the other scene that takes place at this moment in time is when Anakin finds his mother on Tatooine, who was taken by the Tusken Raiders. A very powerful scene, easily one of the best scenes out of the entire prequel trilogy. Those two scenes were nailed, and then after this, the movie, I don't know where this movie goes from here, because the plot is already a mess. It's such an odd way to format a film. Like, for example, all of a sudden Count Dooku just shows up on Geonosis, despite the fact that he was barely ever talked about before this moment in time. Now we're just supposed to believe that he's this strong Sith Lord who has a whole Federation backing him up. I don't understand why he wasn't introduced earlier in the movie. Why'd you wait till the very end to bring on Count Dooku? Also, is it me, or does like every villain lie in Attack of the Clones? First on Kamino, Obi-Wan asks Jango whether or not he knows of Master Sifo Dyas, and he says, never heard of him, even though obviously he does know who that is. And then when we get to Geonosis, Obi-Wan is being held captive there by the Separatists, and Count Dooku confronts him, and Obi-Wan asks him whether or not he knows the bounty hunter Jango Fett, and he says, no, I never heard of him. Like, why does everyone lie? Whatever though, next up is a conveyor belt sequence with Padme and Anakin that I don't really care about. And then we move into one of the best scenes in the whole movie, which is the Colosseum scene, where all three, Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan, are being put to death. It's a good scene. I like the monsters that these three had to go up against. I like how the Jedi finally do something in this sequence. Good stuff here in the Colosseum scene. And then the film finishes off with a very mediocre lightsaber battle and Yoda versus Count Dooku, which was fine for what it was, but nothing special. And that's basically the end of Attack of the Clones. This movie was kind of hard to get through the other day when I watched it again. I'm not gonna lie. It's entertaining. Like I said, has some good sequences, fun scenes that I did enjoy, but overall this movie was a train wreck at some points. The dialogue is still terrible, if not worse. The acting is definitely worse in this movie. Everyone is almost bad in this film. Some of the CGI and the green screen does not hold up at all in 2019. It actually ruins some of the action sequences for myself. Yeah, this movie did a lot wrong, but also is entertaining, so I was conflicted where to go. You know what? I'm feeling a little generous today. I'm giving Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones a 50%. This movie is probably worse than that rating, but that's what I feel like giving Attack of the Clones. Yeah, it's just not that good of a movie in general. I think quality-wise, it's worse than The Phantom Menace, but entertainment-wise, maybe a little bit more entertaining than The Phantom Menace. There's not as many boring political scenes, and looking back on it, you can watch this movie to get some laughs because of how bad the acting and dialogue is. That's a plus. We shall continue my Star Wars series of reviews this upcoming week with Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.